So, you're saying she's barren? My mother was crying. The doctor winces. That's not the first word I would use, but she is infertile, yes. She turns to me. I'm sorry, Lorelei, but this early menopause is irreversible. You're not going to be able to have biological children when you're older. My mother lets out another sob and clasps her hands over her mouth. She's shaking. I turned to her and hesitantly placed a gentle hand onto her back, rubbing smooth circles onto her shoulder blade with my thumb. It's going to be okay, I soothed. It's not the end of the world. She was making this really big fucking deal. Yeah, it's not great, but come on, I'm 17 and not really too worried about my status as a childbearer when I'm older. And hey, not getting a period for the rest of my life sounds like a pretty sweet deal. So there were no tears from my eyes when I heard the news, but Mom is wailing like I had just been diagnosed with a brain tumor. I make eye contact with the doctor and give a half-hearted shrug. She looks away. The only sound in the examination room is the cry of my mother. A few days later, and she's still not out of her funk. The door to her bedroom is shut and locked, and despite my persistent knocking, she refuses to answer, her endless cries wafting through the wood and reverberating through the rest of the house. I pour some boxed pasta into the pot and wince as the water splashes over, the stove hissing in protest. Sadie, my younger sister of 4 years, watches from the kitchen table. I'm sick of pasta, she snorts. I roll my eyes. You don't like it, you cook for yourself. Ever since the news, Mom hasn't done anything. Eating, showering, talking. It's so unlike her. She's always been the most resilient woman I've ever known, a supermom, taking on the role of both mother and father for Sadie and I after our dad passed away. A pang of guilt settles into my chest as a noticeably loud sob bounces through the kitchen. Sadie groans. All this over your broken uterus? I bark out a laugh. Yeah, I guess she's pissed I can't be an incubator for her grandkids. Over our buttered pasta, we listen as Mom's sighs settle down and finally subside, which we assume means she fell into a listless sleep. That's been her routine the past 3 days. Cry, sleep, cry some more. I interrupt the silence. You done your homework yet? Sadie rolls her eyes. Yes, Mom. Just looking out for you. You don't want to be a family disappointment, too. Her eyes soften at that. You're not a disappointment, Lori. It's not your... She is interrupted by a knock at the door. We are interrupted again by an even more surprising sound. Our mother's bed creaking as she bounds out of bed, through her door and to the foyer, throwing open the front door with a flourish. I gaze from the kitchen. A man I have never seen before stands in the doorway, balding and gray, a satchel on his hip and round glasses on his face. Nathan, she says, relief evident in her voice. Please come in. Nathan enters the house, and they both enter the kitchen where Sadie and I are finishing up our pasta. My mother looks awful. Heavy bags under her eyes, hair frazzled and thinning, eyes red and bloodshot, still leaking with tears. But she musters a smile for the first time in what seemed like ages. Lori, Sadie, meet Nathan, a friend of mine. Hi, I respond, and Sadie follows suit. Would you like some pasta? Nathan chuckled humorlessly. No thank you, dear. His voice immediately puts me on edge. It's nice to meet you two. Your mother has told me wonderful things. Sadie was never one for subtleties. Mom, she says, who is this and why is he here? Nathan laughs and my mom blushes. Be polite, girls. Nathan is here to help us. We're going to head to my office, all of us. I cocked my head, confused. We had never been allowed in Mom's office, ever. Strictly off limits, always locked. I was told it was because there were important legal documents. Mom was a lawyer, that she didn't want our hands on. Your office? I repeat, hesitantly. I glance at Sadie. Blatant confusion is written on her face as well. Yes, my mother responds, now impatient. Come on now, we don't have time to waste. The four of us trek up the stairs to the second floor and head for the door. Mom disappears for a moment and returns with a key, rusted and silver, as if speckled with orange. She shoves the key in the lock and turns, opening the door with a solid creak. What the fuck? Sadie whispers, and I don't even hear my mother reprimand her over the buzzing in my head. I've never seen anything like this. The walls are stained with crimson messages, which I pray are in paint rather than blood. He is coming. At dawn he will rise. Death to the non-believers. She who bears the sun will be blessed. Wooden totems litter the floor, pulled together with broken bones and filthy string. The skeleton of what looks to be a sheep slumps in the corner, like a toddler in time out. A pentagram beats down from the ceiling like a sun. My mom sighs. Girls, you were meant to find this out later, but mitigating circumstances have arisen. Her eyes survey the room, filled with pride, as she straightens her posture and finally glances at my sister and I. Our family is special, howbeit unlucky. We have been blessed with the blood of Lucifer in every cell of our bodies, down a long lineage, and we have lived to serve him as his children. And as such, we owe him the gift only we as women can give, his vessel to earth, his child. Sorry, what? I stutter, eyes fixed on the sheep carcass. He needs a son. The death of your father was punishment for bearing 2 daughters. I fear his next punishment may be worse. She glances at me, tears filling her eyes once more. Lorelei, we were so close, until you were barren. Perhaps this is a test of my loyalty. Sadie and I make eye contact and turn towards the door, and Nathan moves to block it, his frame taking up the doorway, arms crossed over his chest. I fear there is no time to waste, my mother continues. Who knows what the next few years will bring, which is why I brought Nathan, to give Sadie a child before all hope is lost. What? Sadie shrieks, and I feel my jaw drop. You're fucking insane, I scream. You're fucking crazy. This fucking creep is not going to rape my sister. Adrenaline rushing through my veins, I turn to where Nathan stands, hands reaching for his zipper as my mother approaches Sadie. No fucking way, I scream. The next moments seem like a blur. Sadie begins to sob as my mother braces her hands on her shoulders. Nathan's fly goes down as he fumbles with the zipper, and my foot, in Doc Martens, collides straight with his groin as hard as I could, eliciting a groan as he crumples to the floor. Fucking pervert! I scream. As he withers, my eyes scan the floor for something, anything. Spying a large bone on the ground, what looks like a femur, I lug it into my arms, struggling against its weight. I whip back around at my mother, who is attempting to restrain a screaming Sadie, before I swing the bone around my head and smash it against her skull. She falls as well, and I waste no time grabbing Sadie's hand and rushing out the door. As we race down the stairs, my mother's straggled voice follows us. You won't get away, you fucking whores. We are all over the world, and we will serve our father. Sadie is sobbing as I throw open the front door and we run into the night, destination nowhere. I have no fucking idea where to go from here. and I swear I feel like something is watching us. I think we are monumentally screwed. I have Sadie's hand in a death grip as we stumble down the driveway and make a break for it down the street. Her cries have been replaced with sputters and gasps for air as I pull her along. "Come on," I huff. "We got to get out of here." "Where are we going?" I hear Sadie's shrill voice behind me, nearly wheezing as she pushes the words out. Where are we going? Good question. The police. That's what the cops are there for, right? My free hand fumbles with my cell phone as I swipe for the emergency call, tapping 911 with my thumb. And then I stop. What the hell am I supposed to say? Hi, yes, my mother and her rapist friends are devil worshippers and are trying to impregnate my 13-year-old sister. Hello, officer. Funny story. Now that I'm sterile and can't have grandkids, my mom's plotting my death in her office-turned-Satan fan club. Yes, that is correct. A balding Satanist is creeping on my minor sister, and I inverted his nuts with my Doc Martens. How would they believe me? And worse, what if they separated Sadie and I? Worse still, what if the cops are in on it too? Am I paranoid? Cautious? Both? One thing is for sure. We have to get far away. Our mother is prolific in our district, a member of the Parent-Teacher Association, a cult in itself, and the neighbor on the block always willing to lend a hand. My eyes scan the wallet phone case, spying my debit card and a few crumpled dollar bills. "Lori, stop!" Sadie gasps, and we pause in our tracks. We're on a main road now, which makes me feel safer, but we're alone and desperate with roughly $3 to our name. I look down at my sister. Snot runs down her face to her chin. Her hair is disheveled, more brown curls out of her ponytail than in it. Cheeks red, eyes bloodshot, she reminds me of my mother locked in her room, crying over me. Me. "Listen," I start. "We're going to be fine. This is what we're going to—" She interrupts. "I don't want a baby." "And you won't fucking have one," I hiss. "But you have to do as I say. This is what we're going to do. We're going into that 7-Eleven down the block and taking out as much money as it'll let me. We're leaving my card there, and we're going to hitch a bus and take it as far as it'll go, and we're going to find a church." "A church?" Sadie questions, breathing beginning to level. "Yeah," I respond, taking her clammy hand in mine as we march towards the 7-Eleven. "If anyone knows how to deal with, demon babies, it would be a priest, right?" The blinding lights of the 7-Eleven make me wince as we enter, a stark contrast to the inky night. We make a beeline for the ATM, and I shove my debit card inside. My first card, with a silly beach scene on the front, slightly cracked. Mom sat with me at the bank when I registered for it, after making some good money working a summer camp when I was 15. She was really proud of me. "You're turning into such a fine young woman, Lorelei." I punch in my PIN as Sadie shakes her head wildly. "Lori, you don't actually believe this, do you? Like, we're not possessed by the devil. Mom is just nuts." "Sadie, I don't know, but it's the only thing I can think of right now." I refuse to believe that my mother is a delusional loon, but I also refuse to believe that I'm the devil incarnate. As I wait for the ATM to spit out my life savings, I take inventory of the people in the 7-Eleven. The young cashier scrolling through her phone, a bored look plastered on her face. 2 teenage boys by the Slurpee machine, blue raspberry slushy filling a tall cup. An elderly gentleman is scanning the candy near the checkout counter, glasses poised at the tip of his nose. We make eye contact. I look away quickly, my eyes burning a hole into the ground. It could be nothing. You make eye contact with strangers all the time. Or it could be something. I'm pretty sure I can outrun Carl from up, but I'm not about to take any chances. Time to go, Sadie, I bark as I drag her out of the store, avoiding the man's gaze, shoving my debit card behind a 6-pack of Orbit gum as we leave. Okay, deep breath. You got this, Lori. Bus stop a few blocks down. I can catch the next one if I put some pep in my step. Bus, church, Planned Parenthood. I need to get Sadie on the pill. Christ, forcing my sister on birth control was not on my agenda for this week, but I have to do something in case of the unspeakable. Beats a coat hanger abortion any day of the week. The thought makes me sick to my stomach as Sadie and I board the bus, shoving our fare at the driver and shuffling to a seat near the middle. The bus is crowded for a Thursday night, and for that I don't know whether to be grateful or not. The bus roars to life, and I pitch forward slightly, lost in thought, and my sister shoots me a concerned glance. She looks terrified, and I don't blame her. I'm pretty damn terrified myself, and I wasn't nearly assaulted 30 minutes prior. I place my hand on her knee and rub circles with my thumb over her jeans, the way I did when she was small, and I couldn't get her to stop crying. She settles slightly, and I inwardly smile. After all these years, I still have the magic touch. We're fine, I murmur. Keep your head down. We're getting off at the last stop, Kay? No way they're going to be able to find us now. I try to lighten the mood. Hey, at least you won't have to go to school tomorrow, right? Get to miss that English presentation you've been complaining about. Sadie cracks a smile, and we settle into some sort of silence. Save for the idle chatter on the bus, the methodical starts and stops, music softly wafting out of a kid's pair of headphones a few rows back. It's the first sense of calm I've felt since this whole mess started. Just 2 girls on a bus, on the way to church for a nice sermon on a Thursday evening. That's when I notice the bus driver in the front window. Our eyes meet before he glances back to the road, back to me. Road again. Me. There's a strange glint in his eyes that I cannot place. A similar look as the man in the 7-Eleven, and a look that I didn't like. His eyes stay on me for a second too long, then flicker to Sadie, and I make an executive choice. We're getting off at the next stop, I mutter. Sadie looks at me quizzically. Why? Because I fucking said so, and we do what I say. The words came out harsher than I intended, and my sister flinches slightly and sinks in her seat. Okay, Lori, new plan. Get off the bus, get away from the bus, and find the nearest church. Suddenly, the bus seems to slow, then stop, pulling off to the side of a barren street. The driver takes the key out of the ignition. The passengers grumble in annoyance, and I know this isn't engine trouble. My suspicions are confirmed when the bus driver stands and turns, waving a pistol in the air. Phone's down, he screams. If I see a phone in the air, you'll see a bullet in your brain. Screams erupt from the passengers, and I realize Sadie is screaming too. The driver starts a purposeful walk down the aisle, and I shoot out of my seat, pulling Sadie to her feet with me. The barrel of the gun is pointed straight at my forehead. I've never seen a gun before, not in real life, and the bubbling fear I'm trying to suppress is boiling to the surface. I will myself not to cry as the driver stalks to our row, taking a protecting stance in front of my sister. The driver looks normal. Young, probably mid-30s, crew haircut, green eyes that I would find lovely was he not preparing to shoot me point blank. The screams have died down to quiet murmurs and stifled cries. Out of the corner of my eye, I see a teenage girl 2 rows forward, about my age with a backpack in her lap, slide her cell phone out of her pocket. The driver notices too, and a tremendous bang nearly shatters my eardrums. Blood sprays against the window seat with a sickening splash, thick red currents pumping out of a hole in the girl's head. She's wearing a halo of brain matter as she slumps against the window and sinks down her seat. The window shatters, shards of glass falling all directions. Vomiting, screaming, the man's eyes on me again. I fight the urge to gag, to cry. I have to be the rock here, because if I crumble, there's no hope for Sadie. Listen, honey, hand over the girl and no one else has to get hurt. Suck a chode, I respond, gripping my sobbing sister's arm. I won't hesitate to shoot you, he continues. Your womb is worthless to us now. We just need the girl. His eyes flicker to Sadie. Young lady, it's time to serve a purpose greater than yourself. I'm panicking. There's no way in hell I'm handing over my sister. But I'm cornered and... Stupid Laurie. Never should have taken the bus. Come on! The man shakes me out of my thoughts. He grits his teeth. I don't have fucking time for this. Suddenly, I spring to life, wrapping my bicep around Sadie's neck as she squeals, and swooping down to grab a shard of glass on the bus floor from the window. I hold it to Sadie's neck as she writhes in my grip, whimpering. I'll fucking kill her, I hiss. I'll slit her throat right here. No Sadie, no fucking baby. The man hesitates, fumbling with his gun. Stop, I scream. You put down your fucking weapon right now, or this glass goes to her jugular. Laurie, she squeals, and I feel a pang of guilt. I press my elbow to her throat harder, and I feel her pulse under my skin. Fast, erratic. Her heart is pounding. I can almost see the gears turning in the man's head as he looks from Sadie to me. Now, I scream, laying the glass to the side of her neck and nicking her skin. A drop of blood leaks from the wound, bright and cherry, and drips onto the floor, leaving a small splatter between us and our assailant. The gun falls from the man's hands, and he's staring in horror, a deer in the headlights. In a sick way, I feel sort of powerful, in control for the first time in what seems like ages, even if it means using Sadie as a pawn. Okay, I continue. We're going to fucking leave now, and you're not going to follow us, or she fucking gets it, you hear? I don't wait for his response, filled with a foreign confidence as I march down the aisle, Sadie in tow. We step off the bus, and I'm almost in tears as we make a break once more. I'm nearly dragging Sadie with me, holding her to me like a human shield. In a sick sort of way, she is one. She's sobbing again. I'm sorry, I coo. I had to. I didn't mean it. No one is going to lay a hand on you. I pick up the pace as we race through a residential neighborhood and emerge on the other side of a main road. Past grand brick houses, hand-printed mailboxes, a dog or two barking behind the confines of an electric fence. For once, luck is on my side, and I spy it. The church. St. David. At this point, it could be the flying spaghetti monster for all I care, as long as it does the job. When we reach the door, I throw my body against it, the gravity of what I've done taking over as I sob. I feel bile rise up in my throat, and I gag, resisting the urge to vomit on Jesus' doorstep. I slam my fists against the door, yelling, "Open the door!" I scream. "Open the door right now, bastards!" As I break into sobs, there is music to my ears. The heavy church door swings open, its warmth engulfing me almost instantly, a stark contrast from the bitter cold and fear outside. A man stands on the other side, smiling, decked out in a cassock. There is a twinkle in his eyes, one that I cannot yet place. "Lorelei, Sadie," he smiles warmly. "We've been expecting you. Please, come in." The man ushers Sadie and I inside the church, the doors slamming behind us with a grand sweep. We trek down the aisle, Sadie's hand small and sweaty in mine, and I take a moment to look around. I had never been in an actual church before. I've seen them on television, sure, but we weren't raised religious, for obvious reasons, I suppose. It's different in real life. The colors on the stained glass windows still penetrate through the dark of the night, and the ceiling is tall, so tall. I feel a sudden pang in my head and realize how exhausted I must be, parched too. The man, priest, is it okay to call him a man? I don't know, leads us down the aisle, past the altar, and into a small room near the back of the church, nearly barren, save for a large cabinet, a couple of chairs, and a rickety wooden desk in the corner, barely balancing on its skinny legs. "Please sit down," the priest tells us, motioning to the chairs. Hesitantly, I sink into one, and Sadie follows suit. The priest gives us a once-over. I imagine we look like a hot mess. I can feel sweat dripping down my face, drying in my hair and wetting the back of my shirt. My sister is still crying, softer this time, but it breaks my heart nevertheless. "Would you like some water, something to eat?" the priest asks. "What?" Sadie starts, but I interrupt her. "No, thank you." A strange feeling is growing in my stomach, and as thirsty as I am, I can't bring myself to trust this man. "We're fine," I assert, glancing guiltily at my sister as she shrinks into her chair. The priest gives us a kind look. "Please," he says, "let me at least give some first aid supplies for your sister." I look at Sadie with a start. Blood is trickling slowly down her neck. I wince because I did that to her, my sister. I'm supposed to be protecting her. Guilt churns in my stomach, along with whatever uneasy feeling is settling in my gut as well. I want to be sick. Sadie shakes her head, pressing her sleeve to the wound. "It's fine," she says. "Laurie, it's fine," she repeats. I realize that I'm shaking. "This is so fucked. You're barely protecting your sister. You almost slit her throat. Would you have slit her throat had the man reached to pull the trigger? Are you of the devil, Lorelei?" The priest interrupts my thoughts. "Very well," he says. "My name is Father Vincent. As I've said, we've been expecting you." "Who is we?" I question. "And how do you know our names?" Father Vincent exhales. "By we, I mean the church. We figured you'd be turning up to one of us, so we've been waiting. And as for your names, well, you're pretty well known around here." He cracks a smile. "Almost famous, you might say." I narrow my eyes. "Famous how?" Father Vincent continues. A new sweat is breaking on my brow, and I move to wipe it with the back of my hand. It feels hot to the touch. "Well, as you've probably heard, you've come from a pretty long lineage of Satan worshippers. Your mother is one of their most prominent, but something separates your lineage from the rest of them." "And what might that be?" I ask. "Lorelei, isn't it obvious?" The priest and I lock eyes. "Somewhere along your bloodline, an incarnate of the devil intertwined his blood with your family. They have locked you into a prophecy and cursed your lineage. People like your mother are depending on you to bring them the second coming, Lucifer in the flesh, to lead them once more. I resist the urge to scoff. So, you're saying I'm related to the devil, and so is Sadie? The priest squints. It's more complicated than that, but yes, Lucifer's followers are depending on a woman in the family to provide the Antichrist as a vessel. And fortunately, or unfortunately, the vessel must be a biological male, which is why neither of you fit the bill, and your mother doesn't either. So now, the only way for the Antichrist to be born is... Father Vincent interrupts. Sadie. The only way for the Antichrist to be born is Sadie. When God froze your womb, Lorelei, He has spared you the danger of carrying this baby. He glances to my sister. Sadie, on the other hand, was not so lucky, and now your mother and the other followers are panicking. They fear that God will strike again, which is why they are desperate to impregnate your sister before that can happen. Sadie sniffles, then hiccups. I move my hand to rest on her knee. My head hurts, worse now. This is fucking crazy. Father Vincent smiles warmly. I am glad that you two are unlike your mother and have found us here. We can protect you, if you let us. On holy ground, your mother cannot hurt you. This is insane, I mutter, and Father Vincent nods slowly, sympathy filling his eyes. Okay, so let's just say that this guy is telling the truth. If God isn't going to help Sadie out, modern medicine is going to have to do the trick. Okay, I say. So, we'll give Sadie a hysterectomy. What is that? Sadie squeals. Chill, I tell her. It just means we get a doctor to take out your uterus so you can't have a child. No uterus, no baby, no Antichrist. It's simple. I look to Father Vincent. That'll work, right? There's that look again, in Father Vincent's eyes that I cannot place. My head feels full of cotton, and I shake it quickly, clearing my vision. Right? Father Vincent nods slowly. Yes, if we sterilize your sister, she cannot have the baby. Therefore, the second coming cannot be born. I am flooded with relief. Okay, awesome. So, we can go to a hospital or something? Or get a doctor over here? You guys have doctors, right? I'm afraid it's not that simple, said the priest, and my head snaps up, locking eyes with him. A sharp pain runs down my spine, and I will myself to ignore it. I glance at Sadie, and she is sweating buckets, quivering in her chair. Father Vincent rises from his chair and walks to me. A long finger is placed under my chin, and he raises my head so that I am looking into his eyes. He smiles again, but it throws me off guard. It is sad and sweet, sympathetic but maliced. He moves his finger and my head drops, a cough rattling through my throat. I am afraid that if we just sterilize your sister, Satan's hatred will manifest in other ways. I am also afraid it already has. How are you feeling, Lorelei? I feel like shit. My head is swimming. I try to swallow, but I can't because my throat is so goddamn dry. I rest my hands on my knees and bend forward, beads of sweat dripping onto my thighs. I can hear Sadie whimpering from the chair next to me, but I cannot turn to see her because my neck is so goddamn stiff. Exactly, whispers Father Vincent. While you may not be a vessel, on holy ground, your devil's blood is boiling. You are dangerous. You are a manifestation of evil, womb or no womb, and I am afraid that no hysterectomy will save you from that, my dear. Sadie, I choke. Run! Father Vincent scoffs. Don't be afraid. We are not evil, and I promise, Once we take some of your tainted blood for personal purposes, your death will be quick and painless. Perhaps the Lord will reward you for your good deeds by opening the kingdom of heaven, or at least not damning you to hell with your followers." "No," I choke. "They're not killing Sadie. Sadie is 13. She's never kissed a boy, or girl, who am I to judge? Or driven a car, or went to prom. She's not lived her life, and I'll be damned if some religious fruitcake kills her over a red guy with horns." With the thought of my sister, a burst of energy racks my body, and I rise from my chair, swinging at Father Vincent with every ounce of my strength. Try as I might, I've never thrown a punch in my life, and with that aside, my swing is weak and clumsy. I don't even touch him before my knees give out and I sink to the floor, a groan escaping my lips. "Laurie," Sadie squeals, throwing herself from her own chair, landing in a heap by my side. Father Vincent kneels beside us, taking a gentle hand to tuck a clump of damp strands of hair behind my ear. "We will be having company soon," he whispers, "and arrangements will be made then. But for now, I need you to cooperate." Reaching into his robe, he pulls out a small vial, slowly unscrewing it with soft and slow hands. Dripping some liquid onto his fingers, he reaches towards my face. I flinch, but to no avail, as he wipes the sweat from my brow. As his hand touches my face, I'm screaming, writhing, throwing my arms in the air as I attempt to remove him from my body. My arms aren't working properly. They're twitching in different directions. My head is on fucking fire. I feel like my brain is sizzling, as if it is going to melt through my skull. I finally find it in me to look for Sadie. As my head snaps to the right, I see her, brown hair astray, retching at my side. Father Vincent's hands caressing, massaging her scalp as she yelps for mercy. Her skin is reddening as if she was burned. One of her small hands finds Father Vincent's, and she attempts to wrench his hand from her scalp. She's no match for him. She's 13, and it's my job to fight him off, but I can't. Save her, Laurie. Save your sister. You promised nothing would happen to her. Do it, Lorelei. But I can't. You know, I've made a lot of dumb decisions in my life. I snuck out of my window and down the side of the house when I was 14 to meet a boy, falling 6 feet and breaking my ankle. I cheated on a chemistry test, freshman year of high school, got caught, and was rewarded with a big fat 0. I spread that rumor about Katie from algebra. I pulled my sister's hair when I was little and hid her Barbies around the house. I screamed at my dad the night before he died for leaving my mom. But this was probably the dumbest, going to this church. And that is my final thought before unconsciousness takes its hold and my eyes flutter shut.